Hi guys, it's Emma AITA, your favorite AI slop tuber. Before we jump into today's video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks so much for your support. Now, let's get right into the video. AITA for refusing to let my fiance's younger sister live with us after college. I, 29 EM, have been with my fiance, Aaron, 28 F, for 6 years. We've been engaged for 1, living together for 3, and planning to get married next spring. I love Erin deeply. She's intelligent, kind, and funny in a quietly sharp way that makes every conversation feel a little brighter. We met in grad school, bonded over being bookworms in a sea of party people, and we've been building a quiet, stable life together ever since. Erin has one younger sister, Casey, 22F, who's graduating college this summer. Casey is Erin's opposite in a lot of ways. Loud, extroverted, impulsive, and always surrounded by chaos. It's not that she's a bad person, not at all. But she's always reminded me of a firecracker that someone lit and then threw into a room full of open containers. She changes majors like outfits. I think she landed on sociology after going through psychology, art history, and environmental studies. And she's been through a... Despite all that, Erin and Casey are close. Erin played a motherly role in Casey's life since their mom died when they were both teenagers, and their dad is distant and remarried into a new family he seems more interested in. So Erin's always looked out for Casey. I respected that. I understood it. I admired it, even, until it started coming to our doorstep. Casey's been living on campus for most of college, bouncing between roommates and boyfriends, working part-time gigs, and never really settling into a plan. During her final semester, she called Erin crying because her roommate got engaged and kicked her out of their off-campus apartment a month early. Erin didn't even hesitate. She told her she could stay with us until graduation. I wasn't thrilled, but I bit my tongue. It was only a month. That month turned into 6 weeks. Casey showed up with 2 duffel bags, a dying laptop, and a cat she hadn't mentioned. Within a week, our quiet home felt like a frat house with better wine. Dishes piled up. She played music at all hours. She would borrow Erin's clothes without asking, and leave hair in the shower like it was a gift. And she constantly left the cat litter box overflowing, which I ended up cleaning most of the time. But the worst part? She didn't seem to be in any hurry to leave. She slept in until noon, applied to maybe 1 job a week, and spent most of her time scrolling TikTok, watching reality TV, or working on her blog, which as far as I could tell was a half-baked series of rants about astrology and late capitalism. I told Erin as gently as I could that Casey needed a deadline. Erin agreed reluctantly and told her she needed to move out by July 1st. Casey cried. There was a whole dramatic scene. Erin held her. I cleaned up the kitchen while they talked for 3 hours. Eventually, Casey moved in with a friend across town. Life returned to normal. Erin and I started wedding planning again. Things were calm. Until last week. Last week, Erin came home from work with a look I know too well. The one where she's already made a decision she knows I won't like. She sat me down at the kitchen table, nervously twirling her engagement ring, and said, "Casey wants to move in with us for a while, just until she gets a job and saves up some money." I blinked. Didn't we just go through this 2 months ago? "She's not asking to stay forever," Erin said quickly. "Just a few months. She's looking for jobs, but rent is insane right now. And she's scared. I told her we'd talk about it." I took a deep breath and tried to keep my voice level. "Erin, I love you, and I get that she's your sister. But Casey living with us again is not something I'm okay with. I can't do that again." She flinched like I'd slapped her. I explained that last time had pushed me to my limits. That I felt like a stranger in my own home. That I was picking up after someone else's mess every day, and it had taken a toll on our relationship. That our house had stopped being a home and turned into a free Airbnb with a moody guest and a litter box. "But this time she knows it's temporary," Erin argued. "She's really trying. She applied to 5 jobs last week. She's been going to networking events. I think this could be different." I wasn't convinced. I told her no. Firmly, kindly, but no. I said that I wanted to start our marriage on stable ground, not by turning our home into a halfway house. That I would happily help her brainstorm other options, help Casey find a roommate, co-sign something if needed, lend her some money for a deposit even, but that I wasn't going to live with her again. Erin didn't say anything for a long time. Then she stood up, said, "Okay," and went to bed without another word. The next few days were tense. She wasn't angry exactly, but distant, polite, quiet. I knew this was hard for her. I also knew that I wasn't going to cave. I had drawn a line. I had every right to draw that line. Then I got a text from Casey. It was a wall of text, actually. saying she was sorry I hated her so much, that she didn't mean to ruin our perfect little life, that I didn't understand what it was like to be alone and unsupported. She said she wasn't looking for charity, just a place to stay while she found her feet, and that by refusing, I was driving a wedge between two sisters who had already lost enough family. That last part got to me. I didn't respond. Instead, I sat with it. And then I told Erin that if she needed time to think things over, if she felt like this was a deal breaker, we should talk honestly, because I wasn't going to rescind my boundary. Not this time. She cried. Told me I was putting her in an impossible position, that she couldn't just abandon her sister, that if the roles were reversed, she'd never expect me to turn my brother away. I don't even have siblings. But I held my ground. I told her loving someone didn't mean enabling them forever, that Casey had to start making adult decisions, and one of them was figuring out how to live independently. We could support her in other ways, but not by sacrificing our peace. Erin didn't yell. She didn't argue anymore. She just said, okay. And then the silence got colder. The next week was an emotional roller coaster. Erin and I barely spoke beyond the necessities of daily life. The tension hung over us like a thick fog, thickening with every unanswered question and every glance avoided. It felt like we were both trapped under a glass dome, unable to break the silence but suffocating in it. Erin would sometimes look at me with eyes full of hurt and frustration, and I would feel a pang of guilt that I pushed so hard on this issue. But deep down, I still believed I was doing the right thing. I was protecting the home I wanted to build with her, a home that was calm, stable, and free of constant chaos. One evening, Erin finally broke the silence. We were sitting at the kitchen table, eating leftovers in near silence, when she asked, "Do you think Casey hates you?" It was a simple question, but it struck me like a punch to the gut. I paused before answering. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I don't want her to hate me, but I can't live my life worrying about that. I want to help her, but not if it means losing myself or losing us." She nodded slowly. "I'm torn too. I love her, but I love you too. I don't want to lose either of you." That night, we talked more than we had in days. Erin opened up about how hard it was watching Casey struggle, how much she worried about her sister's future, and how scared she was that Casey would end up homeless or worse. I shared my fears too. The fear that our relationship would be permanently damaged if we let this go on. The fear that I would lose my sanity trying to keep the peace. By the end of the conversation, we hadn't solved anything. No big breakthrough, no promises. But we had agreed to try to communicate better, to be patient with each other, and to find a middle ground, even if it took time. Then, things got complicated. Casey showed up at our door late one Saturday night. I was in bed, exhausted from a long week, when Erin's phone buzzed. It was a text from Casey. "Can I come over? I have nowhere else to go." Erin looked at me with pleading eyes. I shook my head, but she had already opened the door. Casey stumbled in, clearly upset and a little drunk. She burst into tears and said she'd been kicked out of her friend's place, that the roommate had a new boyfriend who didn't want her there anymore. She had nowhere else, no savings left, and nowhere to turn. I felt my resolve start to crumble. Erin hugged her sister and told her to sleep on the couch for the night. I went to the guest room, trying to drown out the noise and the emotions. I knew that letting her stay would only make things worse in the long run, but right now, I also felt like I couldn't say no to Erin. The next day was awkward and strained. Casey apologized for the mess she'd made of her life, promised she was looking for work, and seemed sincere. Erin was hopeful, but I was worried. I tried to keep my distance, but the clutter and chaos crept back into our home like an unwelcome guest. The week passed with small tensions bubbling under the surface. Casey's job search was slow, and her habits didn't improve much. Dishes piled up, the cat litter was neglected again, and the late-night noise made it hard to sleep. Erin kept trying to mediate, reminding Casey to clean up and look for more jobs, but I could see her patience wearing thin. One evening, I found Casey crying in the living room, overwhelmed by rejection emails and stress. I sat down beside her and told her gently that I understood how hard things were, but that she needed to take responsibility for her life. She nodded but looked defeated. That night, Erin and I talked again, this time with a little more empathy for Casey's struggle, but also a renewed sense of urgency. We agreed that Casey could stay only until the end of the month. No exceptions. When I told Casey the news, she broke down. "I'm trying," she said. "Why won't you just give me a chance?" I didn't have an answer that felt true and kind enough. All I could say was, because sometimes love means tough love. The final 2 weeks before Casey was set to move out were some of the hardest in our relationship. The house felt like a powder keg. Every minor frustration seemed to explode into an argument. Casey was desperate, frustrated, and sometimes downright rude. Erin was caught in the middle, trying to keep the peace between her sister and me, and the weight of it all was wearing her down. One night, after a particularly tense dinner where Casey snapped at me for not understanding her situation, Erin and I finally had a heart-to-heart in the living room. She said, "I don't want this to destroy us. I want us to be a family, but it feels like we're already breaking." I took her hands and said, "I love you. I want that too. But sometimes being a family means making hard choices. We can't keep enabling her if it's tearing us apart." Erin looked exhausted but nodded. "I know. I'm scared of what will happen to her if she's completely on her own." "I'm scared too," I admitted. "But I'm more scared of losing you or losing ourselves in this." The day Casey finally moved out was bittersweet. She left with a few bags, the cat in a carrier, and tears in her eyes. Erin and I helped her pack and drove her to her new place, a small room in a shared apartment across town. I gave her a list of local resources, job leads, and even offered to help her update her resume. I wanted her to know we weren't abandoning her. We just needed boundaries. After she left, Erin and I sat in silence for a while. Then she leaned her head on my shoulder and said, "Thank you for standing firm. I know it wasn't easy." I smiled tiredly. "Thank you for understanding." It's been a month since Casey moved out. Erin and I are slowly healing, and we've started couples therapy to help rebuild trust and communication. Casey has been checking in, and while the path ahead is uncertain, I believe she's finally starting to take responsibility for her life.